This tutorial will be a broad overview of the concept of subjunctive mood in Latin. There will be other tutorials that go into much greater depth on some of the uses that you see in this tutorial. Now, there are two what we call moods in Latin. The indicative mood is that mood which is normal verbs describing actual present or past or future actions. Here's an example. Puella amicum videt. The girl sees the friend. This verb is indicative. It is reporting something that is actually happening. Here's a past tense example. Caesar expiravit. Caesar died. Now, even if this were a lie, if someone told us that Caesar died but he had not, it's still indicative because it's being reported as an actual event. Even the future tense, which has technically not happened, is still reporting something that the person believes will happen. And so, Marcus ad Aegyptum navigabit, Marcus will sail to Egypt, future tense is still indicative. And this brings us to what's called the subjunctive. Unlike the indicative, the subjunctive in some way is describing something that is not truly a real situation, at least yet. Now, the word subjunctive comes from the Latin meaning under the yoke. And you're going to see that subjunctive appears in what we could call yoked situations. It's going to be situations where it is a clause that is subordinate in some way to something. In general, subjunctive is used in unreal situations. Here's an example in English. I should study Latin harder. Now, should study in English is a subjunctive form. I'm not, according to this verb, I'm not claiming that I am studying. It's not a real situation. It might be a wished for situation, a hoped for situation, but it is an unreal situation. I wish that I were taller. The subjunctive verb here is were. I were is subjunctive in English. Now, I wish, this is indicative. I'm actually doing this. I'm wishing something. But the thing that I wish is not something that is currently true. Again, it is wished for, it is hoped for, but it is unreal. And so that I were taller is subjunctive. Latin has separate forms for any situation such as we just saw with that I were taller. Now, in the first conjugation, there's going to be a shift from the theme vowel A to the use of an E. And so I look, he looks, specto spectat, becomes spectem spectet. In the second conjugation, you have a shift from the theme vowel E to an EA. And so, that I may warn moneam, that he may warn moneat. In the third conjugation, where you have an E or an I, now you have an A. And so, that I may say decam. Third I-O is going to resemble the fourth, as it frequently does, and so you have capiam capiat for the forms that I may take, that he may take. And finally, the fourth conjugation, just like the third I-O, you're going to have a shift from the normal I to an IA. So audiam audiat, that I may hear, that he may hear. Again, unreal situations. Here's a way to remember the theme vowels of the present tense subjunctive of the various conjugations. Just memorize E, EA, A, IA, and remember that that corresponds to the subjunctive vowels that you will see in the first, second, third, and third IO, and then fourth conjugations. E, EA, A, IA. Now, in the imperfect, the subjunctive is very easy to form. Instead of a BA, all you're going to do is you're going to add the normal endings, except an M instead of an O. You're going to add the normal endings to the infinitive. And so spectarem, spectaret. Second conjugation, monerem, moneret. Third is dicerem, diceret. Third IO, caperem, caperet. And fourth, audirem, audiret. In the perfect tense, you're going to add a distinct series of endings, erim, eris, erit, etc., to the perfect stem. Same with an irregular perfect tense, such as you have with third conjugation. And finally, with the pluperfect, for the subjunctive, you're going to add this ending issem and isset onto the perfect stem. Here we have a summary of the forms of the subjunctive. For the present, again, E, EA, A, I, A are the vowels that you're going to see. For the imperfect, you'll be adding endings onto the infinitive. For the perfect, you're going to add endings like erim, eris, etc. to the perfect stem. And for the pluperfect, issem, isset will go on the perfect stem. Now on to some uses of the subjunctive. One use of the subjunctive is what we call hortatory subjunctive. In the present tense, the subjunctive form can be used in the sense of let's do something. So, eamos, let's go. Oremos, let us pray. And from Catullus, vivamus atque amemos, let us live and let us love. You'll frequently see subjunctive used after the word ut, which means that, so that, or in order that. Notice in this example, volo ut amicus noster veniat ad convivium. I want that our friend may come to the party. Now, better English would be, I want our friend to come to the party. Remember, this is fulfilling subjunctive mood's use as something unreal. The fact that I'm wanting something, that's an indicative verb. I want something to happen. But it may not happen. And so I'm expressing the wish that our friend may come. Whether he comes or not, we don't know. And so subjunctive expresses the unreal situation of that he may come. Notice this is different. If I want myself to do something, I can just merely use the infinitive. I want to come is just volo venire. But when you want somebody else to do something, you're going to be using a subjunctive mood verb. Now, sometimes you want something to happen in order that something happens. So, for instance, Caesar urbem intravit. Caesar entered the city. Why? Ut inimicos interficeret. In order that he might kill the enemies. This is an imperfect tense subjunctive verb. We don't actually know whether or not he killed the enemies or not. He entered the city for that reason. We call this then a purpose clause. But it's subjunctive because technically the only true fact reported is that he entered the city. Here's another use of subjunctive with ut. Caesar tantos inimicos interfecit. He killed so many enemies. Ut sanguis per vias fluxisset. That blood flowed through the streets. And we could add, like, logically, as a result of the first thing, that he killed so many enemies, that blood flowed through the streets. When you have some word like so much or so in the first part, and then you basically are going to call this a result clause. Something happened so much that as a result, something else happened. Now, with cum, which remember, ordinarily when you first learned this, it meant with. But cum, followed by anything but ablative, you'll translate it as when, or maybe because, since, although. You'll have cum with subjunctive verbs, and you'll translate it again, when or because. When Caesar had entered the city, cum Caesar urbem intraviset, inimicos interfecit. He killed the enemies. So just be aware, when you see cum, and after cum is not an ablative, be prepared for the possibility of a subjunctive verb. Finally, another use of the subjunctive is in what we call a conditional sentence. This sentence is what we call a contrary to fact condition. It's something that did not happen, but we may have wanted it to happen. Si ad convivium venissem, amicum meum vidissem. And these are two subjunctive pluperfect verbs. And we translate it, if I had gone to the party, I would have seen my friend. But the fact is, according to this sentence, I did not go to the party, and I did not see my friend. And so you'll see subjunctive used in such sentences as conditionals as well. Remember, there will be tutorials that go into much greater depth on all the things you've seen in this overview.